let's start off as we wish to proceed and begin with some questions of you. Who here knows what dowsing is? Show of hands. Okay, so we've got 2 people that don't. So you all can go to sleep now. I'm going to talk to dowsing. Dowsing is the art of finding, detecting, or locating, quote, hidden or unseen, often because they're buried, objects or substances through various means. The most traditional form of this is the finding of water, which is called water witching. All right, it's also known as dowsing. And water witching is very, very old. All right, it goes back hundreds and hundreds of years. It goes back thousands of years, in fact. You probably at some point in time have seen a depiction of someone dowsing, and what they were using was a Y branch. And they were holding it like this, and they were walking along, and when the branch dips, all right, that means there's water underneath. Now, there is an interesting thing about dowsing, and that is this. We have all sorts of various unseen means of doing things, whether it be sympathetic magic, contagious magic, you name it. And as time and history have gone on, they've all kind of gotten a moment where they're looked down on. They're dismissed with the rise of, the age of reason and the age of enlightenment, and everybody goes, okay, that's a bunch of nonsense. What's interesting is that really hasn't ever happened to dowsing. Dowsing is still done to this very day. Oil companies hire dowsers. I mean like Exxon, okay? We're talking about big name. Those people that look for gas and oil are called doodlebuggers. And they primarily use a piece of metal to douse with, often copper. And they doodlebug. But there are people to this very day who, when they buy a piece of property and they want to drop a well, go hire a dowser. Dowsing's never had exactly that dismissive moment. And the reason for that is it works. Now, inevitably in a class like this, the very first question is going to be, Professor Porterfield, yes, you with the British accent in the third row. What is the means by which dowsing works? And my answer to that is, there are 1,800 different answers, okay? You can go listen to other dowsers, you can go read books, you can go to other classes, and these people will tell you a variety of reasons that it works. And let me say this to you. They're not wrong. And neither am I. Meaning, we're not sure. All right? Some people say it's a hidden vibration. Okay? That there are vibrations of things. Water gives off a vibration. Gold gives off a vibration. And you can contact it. Other people say, it's spirit. Okay, it's spirit. You're talking to a spirit, and the spirit's moving the rod or the pendulum or whatever. That could be your grandpa, it could be the Archangel Gabriel, it could be whoever, but there's a spiritual force that's moving the object. Other people say it is merely a tool that allows access to people's innate unknown abilities, whether those what are called psychic powers or whatever, that basically you're letting your subconscious mind, okay, move the object, move the stick, move the L-rod, move the pendulum through subtle movements that even you're not aware of. And so basically what you're doing is you're letting your own psychic power operate. Who knows? Science says it doesn't work at all, and the only reason it does happen is blind statistical chance. And if you put a guy in a field long enough, he'll find water. That's a bit much for me. As to the method of those others, which is true, I can't tell you. I can't tell you because I'm not really interested in why. I'm interested in what. All right? You could come to me tomorrow and say, it's an invisible worm named Hercules, and Hercules makes the thing operate. And I would go, hey man, that's great. Okay? As long as it works. Okay? That's what I'm interested in. What's fascinating about that is there has been a lot of furor, primarily about 300 years ago, almost 400 years ago now, within the church, and by that I mean the Catholic Church, about what causes dowsing to work. And the church could never agree that this was a bad thing. All right. In fact, if you go out tonight and go home to your computers and type in famous dowsers, okay, you're going to find multiple pictures of men of the cloth dowsing. Priests, cardinals, deacons, bishops, who all were very famous as dowsers in their time. So on that much we know that at least the church did not say, oh, that's an evil demonic thing, because they kept doing it. And you might say, why does the church say, lighting candles or whatever kind of magic, making puppets or whatever is evil, but this dowsing isn't? Well, my answer to you would be this. It works, and it was profitable to them. Mm-hmm. They needed a well. Dowsing found well, dig well. They needed to find whatever, found whatever, dug it up. Oh, okay. So then the excuse becomes, this, of course, could not be evil because our Lord has blessed us with the gold that we found. Well, that's convenient thinking, but how popular is dowsing, you might ask? Well, there is, in fact, the American Society of Dowsers Incorporated. They incorporated in 1961, but they had been around for a number of decades before. So there is a National Dowsers Association in America. They carry various materials, books, videos, audio tapes, and things to dowse with. And I suggest, if you're interested, to check them out. I have a couple of these, and at the end of the class, if everybody wants one, you can't all have one because I only got a few, but you can write down the information and check them out. So that tells you that dowsing is something that is still vital and still lives. Is dowsing an American art? No. Dowsing has happened all over the world. It's very popular in England to this day, very popular in France, very popular in Germany. There are various forms of dowsing that take place in Chinese culture, African culture, and the culture of the Indian subcontinent. What is dowsing comprised of? Well, dowsing is comprised of simply this. A person, the dowser, looks for something. B, the dowser uses a tool to find that information or to find that substance or obtain information. Those tools are legion, so let's talk about them a bit. I would like to show you the simplest dowsing that takes place in England and America. Some of you may have done it and not realized you were dowsing. At a baby shower, okay, which is also in Scotland and Ireland called a hen party. Women gather, we all know what a baby shower is. And the woman's wedding ring will be taken off, all right? It will be attached to a cord, okay? And they'll either have her lay down or sit down, okay? And having, hold on a second, I might actually have, yeah, of course I do. Having tied off her wedding ring, okay? A friend, often the oldest woman present, isn't that interesting that you would suggest that she's the wise one, will take the wedding ring on a string and hold it over the pregnant woman's belly. If the wedding ring makes this sort of a movement, then she's going to have a boy. All right? If the wedding ring makes this sort of a movement, then she's going to have a girl. All right? Now, some of you may have just said, well, why does that movement mean boy and that movement means girl? And I'm going to say, it's so nice to meet you. I don't meet many clean-minded people. This is a boy because it's a penis. It goes up and down. This is a girl because of a vagina. Okay? But this has been done at baby showers and parties of that nature, good Lord, for hundreds and hundreds of years. I'm sure if any of you here were to ask a grandmother, an auntie, a cousin, your mom, they would go, oh yeah, we took the wedding ring off and we did. I haven't thought about that in years. Some of you may have even seen it done. So that right there is absolutely the most common, regular immediate form of dowsing that is experienced in America. Please don't be startled. She already tried to. She pushed him to the outer edge. She was like, "You sit in the aisle." So that's a very, very common form of dowsing. Now, is dowsing elaborate? Do I need to have specialized tools, strange items? No. I carry with me something that I dowse with all the time. I use as a pendulum and I use it to ask questions. Key. Also, a very traditional old pendulum used primarily for information dowsing. What do I mean by information dowsing? We have two great fields here. We have substance dowsing, substance use, and we have information. Meaning, you're looking for gold, you're looking for water, you're looking for silver, you're looking for your pocket watch or your chain or whatever that you dropped in the yard, you're looking for the best place to plant a tree, all of that. We're looking for things, okay? Information, we're asking questions. Should I? Yes. No. Is it? With the pregnancy. The pregnancy is where they join, okay? Pregnancy is where they join. We're making sure the baby is there and the baby is healthy, and we're asking, will the baby be male or female? So we're doing both, okay? So a key, clariomancy, is often used as a pendulum, and you ask a question, okay? And then we'll talk a minute here about how you determine yes or no, but you'll get an answer, okay? I wear this as a pocket watch fob, and the reason I do that is because I'm a somewhat sinister asshole, and I don't want people to know that I'm asking questions about them. And so I can be talking with somebody and they think I'm just nervously fiddling with my key on the end of my chain, when actually what I'm doing is going, can I trust this person? And I'm kind of watching. Are they telling me the truth? Is it really that low an interest rate on a new car? When the guy's called Crazy Mel, I'm a little scared. The flip side to that is that also used as a pendulum, at one point in time very popular in America, is a pocket watch. Now, how has this survived? We know this to be true because it's survived in culture, but it has changed. It has left its place as a pendulum, where we're strictly asking questions and getting responses, and it's become the artifice of the stage magician and the stage actor and the stage hypnotist. For my next trick, I'd need a common man's pocket watch. Is there a common man in the audience? And so we have forgotten that this was used as a pendulum, and instead it has become, you're getting very sleepy. Watch the watch as it goes back and forth, back and forth. She's already starting to do the, I'm not listening to you. But at one point in time, a very popular and very common pendulum. Why did it fall out of disfavor? Because we started wearing wristwatches. It's as simple as that. Well, Professor Porterfield, were pocket watches really that popular? Oh, let's find out. You, sir, you are wearing blue jeans. On your right-hand pocket, would you reach down and see if there's a little interior, smaller pocket?
Oh, there is.
Well, what is it for?
No idea.
A pocket watch. It's called a watch pocket. And it is for a pocket watch. It is so your pocket watch doesn't get scratched up with your change. So how popular were they? Every pair of blue jeans to this day still has a watch pocket. That's how popular they were. So now, before we go and talk about more elaborate forms, let's continue to talk a bit about pendulum dowsing. I would like to show you the most common pendulum in the world. Used by old workers, used by old dowsers, used by old pendulum diviners for generations. It's a plumb bob. It's a standard, everyday plumb bob. Okay? This one's an old one. This is an old antique plumb bob. You can see the point's bent now. It's no longer plumb.
What is that?
Okay, so in construction, you use a plumb bob to find dead center, to find when something's straight. In other words, So let's say I have a plank. All right? All right. I have a plank, and let's say I've laid that plank on another plank. I'm making a T. And let's say I have the plank like this, and this is not going to be plumb. You see? I'm looking for this to be, quote, plumb. Have you ever seen a level that has a bubble in it? So when the bubble's right in the middle, it's called plumb. The bubble is plumb. When this is straight up and down, it's plumb. Okay? If it starts to lean, you're off. All right? And so you can check all your construction work with this. These also, this is very worn down. Here's a brand new one. Let me take the protective plastic cover off it. Why is there a protective plastic cover?
It's sharp.
It's very sharp. Feel that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, why is it sharp? So it can leave a mark on a piece of wood. So when it's hanging, it can mark a piece of wood. So I can find where plumb is, right? So I can say, otherwise, if you couldn't determine this, if you didn't have bubble gauges, okay, or plumb bobs, you couldn't do this. No door in the world would open, okay? Because the frame would be like that, and the door would be like that, tunk,
Mhm.
all right? So a carpenter's plumb bob is probably in America, is probably the oldest, most traditional pendulum you could find. Nowadays, we've got shops full, like here, we've got shops full of beautiful pendulums made out of rarefied crystals, gold, silver, brass, everything you would want, all right? But back in the day, the most regular pendulum was this, a plumb bob. There's another reason for that. And I'm going to show it to you in two places. First of all, let me show you with a modern day plumb bob. Back in the day, when these were made, particularly when they were first made, they were not machined with the same excellence that they are nowadays. Okay? Nowadays, we have laser precision. All right? Molds are perfect. Metal molds don't have offness. All right? I mean, things are perfect, and they're measured on machines. Perfect calculations. When this hits dead center, it's dead center. All right? It's not going to be off. Because if it were, and you were doing construction, you could sue the hell out of the Empire company who makes these. All right? Because you have to rely on this for construction. They're perfect. The old days, they weren't. They were often a little off. Just a tad one way or another. So what do you do to address that? They're hollow, slightly hollow inside. They're not hollow all the way through. They just have a soft hollow space. If you put machine oil into that hollow space, one drop at a time, carefully, one drop, and test it. One drop and test it. You can bring it back into alignment. All right? Now, why is that of use to us? Because that leaves an empty space inside a plumb bob that you can place a witness. Witness? What the hell is a witness? A witness is, let's say, I'm looking for water, and I'm not going to use the good old-fashioned forked branch. I would put a couple of drops of water in there. What I'm doing is I'm telling the pendulum, this is what you're looking for. Has anybody here ever had a hunting dog?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank God it's not just me. All right. I'm like, whew. Boy, you got the city audience, and they don't even know what you're talking about. When you have a hunting dog and you're training a hunting dog, you train a hunting dog by giving them scents. I'm not talking about like, in the movies where the one-eyed guy escaped and we're literally take the clothes. No, I mean, like, this is what a raccoon smells like. All right, you have to train that dog by giving him a scent. This is the same idea. I'm putting a couple of drops of water in here the same way I'm letting the hunting dog get a smell of whatever. I'm saying, that's water, go find water. If I was looking for gold, I'd put a little bit of gold dust. If I was looking for silver, I'd put a little bit of silver dust. If I was looking for quartz, and I couldn't see it on the surface, which would be strange because quartz is often found real near the surface, I'd put a little bit of powdered quartz in there. And so I'm saying, this is what you're looking for. Now, that may seem very old and antique, and thank you, because I like to think of myself that way. But it's translated out to this very day. This is what's called a bullet pendulum. Softly, because it looks like a bullet. All right? And the great thing about these is they're hollow. They unscrew. Why? So you can put a witness in it. All right? And that witness could be anything. All right? You could even, my lips, God's ears may not be so, if you were looking for a dead body and you had something of the person, a piece of clothing or a piece of their hair, something like that, you'd put that in to say, that's what you're looking for, go look. All right? So, I bring that up because it talks about the idea that when we are looking for, when we're doing substance dowsing, we have to have some sort of a kin nature. With the classic Y rod, the Y-shaped piece of wood that's cut right off the tree, the most popular wood to use is a willow. Why? Because you're searching for water, and willows grow by the water. They're a water-like tree. Or a peach. Why a peach tree? Because peach trees express a lot of water when you cut their wood. Like, I bet you've never had a peach fire because peach wood is really damp. It takes a long time to dry out. Okay? Most of the fruit woods take a long time to dry out, and that's the reason once they're dry, they end up being used in specialized things. Like you get apple wood chips to put in your barbecue for smoking. Or it's blended in with tobacco to give aromatic fruit flavor to tobacco for pipe tobacco because they take such a long time to dry. Much longer than, say, an oak or a maple. The harder woods, no. Like teak, there's very little aging on teak. Like it comes down out of the forest, by the time you get it where you're going to work it, it's a hardwood. Ironwood's even worse. Okay? Like you can barely process ironwood. All right? But the softer woods, the wetter woods, the fruit woods, and because of that, they're often used for dowsing for water because they have so much water in them, right? That similar idea that we're teaching, we're telling, we're saying, this is what I'm looking for. Now that even goes further. Let's say you have a form of dowsing where you can't put in a substance. You can't add it to this, you can't do it with that, you can't make it out of whatever. Here would be a perfect example. These are called L rods. You can see why. All right? They're called L rods. And L rods are used together, two at a time. You never use one L rod. I mean, I guess you could, but that'd be kind of weird. And an L rod is almost always made of copper. It doesn't have to be. When I was a kid, we used to make dowsing rods out of old coat hangers, clothes hangers. If like grandma or mom threw one out, we would get it and make one because if you get into your mom's clothes hangers to make yourself a bunch of dowsing rods, she's going to be real pissed. And all you do is you bend it at a 90 degree, okay? Make an L. And then if you're going to, you often will put a handle on it, then you bend it again so the handle stays. Some people will tool this in, so they have a little screw or something to hold that in. There are L rods that have no handle. All right? You should probably be a little suspect of them. Because when it has no movable handle, the only way it can move is being moved by the operator. Okay? With this, it takes a light breeze and this thing moves. All right? I don't have to really do anything for it to move. And that's what we're looking for. Because we're trying to get away from what science calls a psychosomatic action. In other words, I'm moving it, but I don't know I'm moving it. I'm fooling myself. But when we have a control like this, a free moving handle, it makes it much easier to not do that. Because, well, it's hard to get that to go the way you want to. Now, when we're doing this and we're looking for something, obviously, we can't, what are we going to do? Dip it in water? No. What we're going to do is we are talking to it. A little later on, we're going to come back to this with pendulums. We're explaining to it. We're telling it what we're looking for. And we're asking it. We're saying, where is whatever? Okay? We're saying, where is the whatever? And we're following its movements. Now, the reason we have two rods is because what we're trying to do is we're trying to get a cross motion. All right? So think of this. Does anybody here know anything about plotting or surveying? Oh, good, just me. No. In plotting and surveying, what you're trying to do is you're setting up a point. You're saying, I'm going to measure from here, and this is going to be the point I'm measuring for. So now I have to mark that off on a grid map. And I'm trying to measure a straight line. So then my pal's got to stand down there. You see him on the sides of the road, right? And the minute you get past one and you go, oh, thank God I didn't hit him, then there's another asshole. Okay? Then you're like, there are two of them. Okay? That's because they're having to hold things. Nowadays, it's electronic laser light that bounces back. In the old days, it was literally a big rod with a chain on it. Okay? And the guy who has to walk out to the middle of nowhere and hold it so the other guy can sight on it is called the chain man. Okay? So you have the sighter and you have the chain man. And what you're trying to do is make lines match up so that you can match them up on your grid map. So you can say, this is the edge of a property. This is where the pipe runs under. This is where the boundary on the highway is going to be, the shoulder is going to be. This is the piece of property that's owned by the city, and this is the piece of property that's owned by Mr. Smith. With this, what we're doing is we're trying to get that same cross. In other words, where is it? So it's either going to point, right? And when we get to it, they're going to cross over. The problem here is knowing what kind of questions to ask. And so people, also, watch out for dowsers who do this. Okay? Because they're faking it. They're controlling that with their little finger. See, you can ask a question once you get balance. But if you ask a foolish question, you get a foolish answer. If you say, where's the amethyst in the room? Well, how the hell is that possible? Well, that's because there's a bunch of amethyst and there's some amethyst. So these two rods immediately just went, yonk! Well, I can't do anything with that. I can't plot that because I can't follow two ways at the same time. What I can do is I can keep moving forward and seeing how they go. All right? If they just keep turning back towards me, then I'm still, it's on either side of me. What we're trying to do is we're trying to walk like a grid. So you're saying, where's the water? And you're walking along and they start to move this way. Now I'm going to stop the minute they move. I'm going to turn that way so I'm straight again. I'm going to keep walking. Now let's say they do this again. I'm going to stop. I'm going to turn again. I might end up making a whole circle so I can find the place where it's leading me to. So again, this is like working out a grid. All right? You're not just going to say, oh, where is it? And it goes, yank. It can't move down. That's why the old people prefer that wooden, cut off a tree wire rod, because they don't have to work out a grid. They say, where's the water? They walk along until the end of that Y dips. In other words, it's right there. All right? You're going to do this, you have to know a little bit of science, a little bit of mathematics, a little bit of grid work. But that's how you find things. How do I find things with a pendulum? Excellent question. Who was that in the back? Okay, good. To find things with a pendulum, first you have to know how to work with a pendulum. So, let's talk about working with a pendulum. A pendulum, now, remember when I talked about putting a witness into a hollowed out pendulum to tell it what to look for, like we're training a dog? All right, now we're going to talk about a different form of pendulum training. Pendulums, doesn't matter what they are, particularly pendulums that are going to be used for information dowsing, have to be trained. You have to train them up. All right? And how do you train a pendulum? Train it in one of two ways. We're going to use this little pendulum. This is a rounded piece of colorful stone. It has silver. Pretty sure it's not solid silver. Bottom, it has a top, and it has, I'm pretty sure it's not silver. Check. Now, you train up a pendulum one of two ways. A, the pendulum's boss. B, your boss. I don't like the pendulum's boss way. It bugs me. It bugs me that a piece of stone on a string's bossing me around, and I don't like being bossed around. My own wife doesn't get to boss me around much. And so why am I going to let some piece of stone and metal boss me around? But I'll tell you how you do it anyway. You want your money's worth. The way that works is you say, because again we're talking about information gathering, we start information gathering with yes, no. You say, which way is yes? Okay, now I see it's already showing me. It moves this way, so it's saying up and down is yes. All right. Which way is no? See, it's starting to move in a circle. It's saying a circle is no. All right. That's one way. That's the pendulum's boss. Here's another stone pendulum. It's just a smooth stone. It's been a stone grinder. It's got a nice little pattern on it. Got a little hook in it on the regular string. With this, I'm boss. New pendulum, never used it before. Nobody's used it. It's mine. Here we go. I say, this is yes. I make it go. I say, that's yes. This is no. That's no. This is maybe. And I do that many times, and I keep working with it until finally I can let it be still and say, which way is yes? And it moves the right way. All right? I'm training it. It's not training me. There's nothing against following the pendulum's natural inclination. I'm just a jerk who doesn't like that. All right? I just don't want to be bossed around by a rock. Okay? But they're both valid. Okay? Yes.
What if you get the same, exact same yes, no, and maybe with any pendulum you ever use? Like the same.
Some people hit the lottery. The former mayor of my town won the Publishers Clearinghouse lottery twice. No, really, he was a vacuum cleaner door-to-door salesman, won the Publishers Clearinghouse, became mayor. Wonder how that happened.
Kid.
Was getting ready to retire from mayor, won it again. So, I mean, literally, that could be that your will is naturally overcoming it, right? You're just naturally, without even speaking, overcoming it. Your spirit or the spirits that are with you are just saying, that's yes, that's no, that's maybe. Or maybe you're just getting lucky. And someday, somewhere, you're going to pick up a pendulum and it'll make you look like an asshole because you'll said to a pal, watch this, every pendulum I ever pick up, and this one will go, and you'll be like, and that's the one. And your friend will be going, oh yeah, sure, all your pills. Yeah. Either of those are valid answers. There are also pendulums like this. This is a solid piece of amethyst, which someone thought was a great idea to make into a pendulum. Okay. Gemstone pendulums are very popular. They're fine, in my opinion, for information gathering. Okay? Yes, no, A, B, C. They're horrible for substance gathering. All right? Really? Really? This is a piece of amethyst, and I'm going to go and say, hey, buddy, where's the copper? And it's not going to do it. It's amethyst. Okay, you know what this is good for? Finding amethyst. Like if there's a big bare field covered in grass and I want to know where the amethyst is, this is the one I'm going to use. All right. Now, people say, all right, Professor Porterfield, but you just showed us brass ones. Why can't they only find brass? First of all, there's no natural occurring brass. It's a man-made substance. All right, so you might be finding some brass things that are lost, but also remember, they're the ones that are hollow, that you can put the thing in, which is part of the reason you're doing that. All right. Can I use an iron pendulum? Yes, you can, and they're excellent for finding what the British call ley lines, what the Chinese call dragon lines, what some people call energy lines, some people call them chi lines. Call it what you will, it's natural magnetic energy. You can actually read them with a magnetometer, okay? And an iron pendulum finds them great. How weird that a ferrous substance finds a magnetic source easy. I'm pretty sure that's just science. I'm sorry, I'm pretty sure a piece of iron finds magnetism line probably has more to do with science than spirit. But that brings up an interesting point. There is a third form of dowsing that we haven't discussed yet that is both informational and substance. And it's the finding of quote-unquote ley lines and to map them. Ley line hunters have an interesting sort of thing going on with their lives. They have a lot of theories. They publish books, magazines. There are ley line societies that are literally more than 100, 200 years old in England. Ley line's very popular in England. And they have this belief, which is that there is a network of crisscrossing magnetic lines all over the surface of the Earth, and where they come together form nexuses of energy construction where people are naturally drawn for spiritual centers. And so you will find a nexus, say, in the middle of Stonehenge. You'll find a nexus at the center of a church. You'll find the nexus at this. They also believe that these same lines can run parallel with each other in ways that they kind of don't work nicely together, and you therefore will find instances of disease. Everybody gets cancer who lives in these houses. Disaster, things always burn down. Okay? Car accidents because they cross a road in an unfortunate way, etc. And you can find such books as this one. This is J. Havelock Fiddler, introduced by Paul Devereaux. They're both very famous dowsers, and they have written this book about ley lines and their nature and properties. And notice right here, a dowser's investigation. So they're talking about a third thing, but they're using dowsing to find it. And you will see here on the back, it's rather small, but here is Mr. Fiddler, and he's a somewhat distinguished older British gentleman with a cap, and he's using a plumb drop. So he's using something like this, and he's trying to find ley lines with it. They then will map these ley lines out and construct elaborate maps. Let me say something about this. It's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. And you can spend hours down the ley line rabbit hole. And what you will find is they're not 100% wrong. This is not complete made-up hokum. There's a lot of stuff that really makes you think. And then you just cross that line right into... All right. Like you're going along with them and you're going, that's great. Oh, wow, that makes perfect sense. Oh, that explains so much. Wow. Did ancient peoples have a methodology of measuring this? Well, they probably had a hunk of metal stuck on the end of a string. So, wow, maybe some of this stuff does. And these lines do all line up, and you can verify. You can go out later with a magnetometer and see the influence. So it's not just some weird old worker with it. So, wow, this must really be going on. And then all of a sudden, it's why Kennedy was assassinated by the Venusians, and because Dallas is on a bad ley line conjunction, and that's how the bullet was able to go multiple directions, because the ley line, you're just like, oh my God.
That's the rabbit hole.
That's the rabbit hole. But up until that rabbit hole, okay, you're fine. And ley line dowsers are in two vast groups. Fairly academic British gentlemen who wear caps and sweaters and smoke pipes, who are very serious about this, who know far too much Roman history and will bore you to death about it, and can speak ancient Celtic and are semi-archaeologists and normally have real letters after their names because they went to a college. Slightly younger British gentlemen who look a lot like the famous writer and comic book artist Grant Morrison, who've done too much LSD and are trying to find hidden motherships. And the fact that Lewis Carroll actually was controlled by a secret Thulian society living in Antarctica. And those don't meet. It's not a razor-thin line between those two camps, kiddies. No, it's like this, okay? And the problem is presentation. You'll start out reading a book like this and go, oh, wow, that's great. And then all of a sudden, Thule in Antarctica. Okay? Down the rabbit hole. Or you'll pick up a thing, and because the publisher has put some wacky cover on it, go, uh-oh, it's them. And now you're in like the bisection of the area of the distance of reduction in strength of line between two stones at various distances. So you really can't judge a book by its cover when it comes to ley line dowsers. Now, leaving our beautiful ley line people alone for a moment, let's talk about another form of pendulum. This is a jackball.
A what?
A jackball. Say it with me. Jackball. There you go. What this is this is various roots, pieces, chips of root, and some personal concerns from the maker of the jackball, held in wax, which has been round about and wound about. Say those together real fast. Roundabout, wound about. With red thread. And then a little eye hook, the thread has been made and a string has been attached to it. It is used for information dowsing in hoodoo and conjure. It's also used for controlling people. But it's used two separate ways for that. To control people, you hold it in your hand and you squeeze it and direct what you want. To have information, you use it just like regular pendulum. The difference is we've now stepped into a whole new realm because now the dowser has become a part of the tool. As I told you, there were personal concerns in there. What are personal concerns? Fingernail clippings, hair, etc. of the dowser. So now we've entered a third new place. Now we don't have the remote tool and the dowser use it. Now the dowser's actually in the tool. This jackball will work absolutely horribly for anybody in this room. All right? There are at least 4 professional root workers in this room, outside of myself. And I can guarantee you, although they are all esteemed individuals and personal friends of mine, that they can't get this to work for them. Because I'm inside this. All right? But I can get it to give them a wrong reading. So never take a jackball from somebody else. Make your own. All right? But again, another form of pendulum dowsing. Let's come back to our L-rods for a moment, because I want to talk to you a moment again about science. A lot of quote-unquote spiritual pursuits are somewhat anathemistic to scientific development. Meaning, science don't like them, and they don't like it. You see this a lot nowadays when people say, oh, y'all on the internet. Get all your information on the internet. There ain't no information on the internet. That ain't nothing but a fax machine tied to a toaster. You can't get nothing on the internet. And when they say this, I often wonder that if I had lived long enough in the past, if they would have said, newspapers. Y'all try to get information. Newspaper. You can't get no information from no new clay tablet. Put all your little chicken scratches on the clay tablet. You can't get no information from a clay tablet. Because it's kind of an asinine position to say that basically there's this repository of human knowledge and I can't find anything on it. Like if I were to go on the internet and go to a Wikipedia page and read about the life and times of Abraham Lincoln, that would all be goddamn wrong. Because the only way for me to find out about Abraham Lincoln is to go find somebody who knew him and talk to him. Well, that gets really problematic really damn fast. Okay, like I'm pretty sure there are no living members of the Lincoln family who knew him, right? I remember, no, that's been a while. So we have to trust information, but there are certain spiritual practices that are kind of anathema to scientific development. Let me show you the one that they hate. I mean, hate. And I'm waiting. They hate this. I mean, I know spiritual workers that hate this, and they don't hate this because it takes up your life or, it's a distraction, or they just hate it because, well, you can't get y'all on your cell phone all the time. There are also a lot of older, very staunchly conservative people who like to say, oh, the younger generation, everybody with their head in your goddamn cell phone. Back in my day, we read newspapers. We had our head stuck in a newspaper. Like you should. Like, what? We had our head stuck in a book. I mean, come on, this is always... when I was growing up, they used to say to me, as a criticism, it served me well. They were wrong. I won. But people used to say to me all the time when I was a kid, you always got your nose in a book. Every time I see you got your nose in a book. You ain't gonna know nothing about life with your nose stuck in a book. Huh. Well, I'm standing up here now, so ha! Okay? Looks like that worked out for old Professor Porterfield. The point is, dowsing loves technological development. The minute something becomes available, dowsers snatch that shit right up. Including, and this goes way beyond the scope of this class, so I'm just going to say this. I'm really being a jerk by saying this because I'm not going to explain it at all. You're left on your own. Radionics. And radionics are used for dowsing as well. And radionics involve big machines that send out radio waves, and you have to have a meter to read them and stuff. But the point is that dowsers went, radionics, oh yeah, I love radionics. Oh yeah, copper, we love tooled copper. Oh yeah, machined part, we love machine. Dowsers will automatically adopt any piece of technology that comes along. They're not afraid of it. And I think part of the reason that happens is because, as I said at the beginning of the class, dowsing hasn't gotten kicked in the ass by science the way everything else did. So they got to stay friends. All right? Let me give you an example. Talk about a wooden rye rod. There's also a straight rod. This is not one, but it's a very similar form. And a straight rod is a straight wooden rod that has a weight at one end. Actually, this would work perfectly. And, except it's metal. And the rod is held. There's a particular stance to hold the rod. And then the movement, you have to get it balanced first. The movement of the rod is used the same way the Y rod is. And this actually is an older Hebraic form of dowsing. In fact, this is called this is my king, but that sort of a setup is called a rod of Aaron, okay, or Aaron's rod. And what's interesting about that is everybody remembers, because of the Cecil B. DeMille classic, The Ten Commandments, that Easter favorite.
Easter class.
Everybody remembers. Man, they say that every year on, the Easter classic, The Ten Commandments, and I go, was? Ich weiß, das ist going to be sugar no. The Easter class is Pesach class. It would be anyway. What we all remember is that Moses Rabbeinu, our great teacher, had a staff. And Moses laid his staff on the waters turned to freaking blood. And laid his staff down, the staff turned into a snake, and it ate the others. This, that, everything. And that's not right. That's not true at all. God says, go back and tell them, hold on a minute, I'll write it down. And Moses says, and I quote, I'm not being funny, Moses says, who am I to speak for thee, oh my God. Moses is a stutterer. It's in the Hebrew text. It's in the Torah. It gets left out in the translation. Moses is a stutterer. He's been a stutterer since he was a child. And so the reason that in the Bible Moses says, and you can read it in the King James Bible, Moses says, who am I to speak for thee? My tongue is not correct. And we think that that's Moses being super humble, like, oh, no, I shouldn't speak for you, bro. No, it's Moses literally, he's Meltilus. It's Moses and Meltilus are both going, but why, right? And that is why God says to him, who fashioned thy tongue? Who made thee as this? Who puts words into thy mouth? I did. If I say you go, you go. Moses still relents and says, no, I can't get in front of Pharaoh, right? So what does God say? I will send thy brother Aaron with thee. It's Aaron who holds the staff. It's not Moses' staff. Well, it is Moses' staff. It's Moses' shepherd's staff. But it's Aaron who holds it. It's Aaron who lays it on the water. It's Aaron who lays it down. Moses even says, Aaron, lay the staff before my feet when it becomes a serpent. Aaron, strike the earth with the staff so that the pestilence goes. Aaron, put the staff down by the lamp so that the darkness falls. Okay? That's why we call it the staff of Aaron, and it's used by divining to this day. That was a quick digression. The point is that dowsers love to pick up technology as fast as they can. Look at the pretty pens. They look at the pretty pens. Gold-plated. It's not real gold. I could get afford it. And you might say, well, how are we going to use these to dowse with? What's the dowsing operation with these lovely pens? And look, they even go in your thing. They got a little pen holder. They're fashionable. You can wear them around your friends. Nobody thinks you're a weirdo who dowses. Abra! Cadabra. It's an L-rod. It's a telescoping L-rod. That's all it is. For those of you who are my age or older, it's a radio antenna and a pin, ain't it, buddy? Ain't that exactly what it is? Ain't that? It's a transistor radio antenna, and you put it in a pin. That's exactly what that is. But see, and they have excellent balance, as you can see. Where's my wife? So this is just a small example of the fact that dowsers love to pick up technology. Okay? And you might think these are super, like, wow, man, these professional dowsers, 25 years, they might have cost them pretty, man, I wish I could have some. They got them in there. They got them in there. The register's open until after the class. You can get these. You can't get this. This is the cool leather thing that it came with. So that's why mine are better than yours. Speaking of that, they also have smaller versions of these. All right. So I want you to stop for a moment and consider that for a second. Now, those of you who are here tonight are probably former customers of Next Millennium. All right. You've been here. You've shopped here. You know what this place is like. It's not some sort of like, you come in and there's a guy shaking a skull full of acorns, All right. It's a pretty light, happy kind of place, right? They got beautiful things and nice smells, and they got cards, okay, with the goddess on them and things. Okay, it's not a weirdo kind of like you can't go to Charlie Odoretzi and go, where are the possum bones? Okay? You can totally do that with me. I can sell you if you need possum bones. Just the point being, they have dowsing materials here. They had them here before I came here. It's not like they ran out and said, oh crap, he's coming, quick, buy a dowsing ship. All right? Because it's that common. It's that ordinary. It's that much a part of our culture and American history. And again, this is not quote unquote a pagan thing. This is not quote unquote a Christian thing. This is not quote unquote a Judaic thing. I've already given you one example of a Judaic dowsing method. I've shown you earlier that we have priests and ministers dowsing. In fact, some of the most famous dowsers in America are Protestant ministers, okay? Because, again, they use passages out of the Bible that talk about finding hidden things, being Spirit-led to discover this, that God shall appoint, all right? So this is cross-cultural. Now let me stop and say something. I have a personal belief. It is not a fact. It is a belief. Please do not confuse it with a fact. I have a personal belief that whenever we talk about anything and we find that it has multiple cross-cultural influence, we're on to something. It's all well and good for any one culture to say one thing. That is their culture. Respect their culture, admire their culture, If you can be a nice person, co-participate with their culture if they welcome you. All right? But when you've got 6 or 7 different cultures, and they all say salt's protective, right? You got all these different cultures that cover thousands of years. They're disconnected. They're not like this culture bled into that culture, like the Romans ripped off the Greek culture. All right? It's not that. No, it's like this culture over here, this culture over here, this culture over here, this culture over here, and they're separated by hundreds of thousands of miles and sometimes thousands of years, and they all say something like salt is protective. Salt drives away bad spirits, bad feelings, bad influences. You know what I think? I think salt does that. Because you got too many people agreeing about a third thing. That's not to say that if you have one culture who says, oh, I don't know, tomatoes are good for love, that's false. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is when things become multiple cross-cultured, and those cultures are not directly influencing each other, then you know you're getting down to something, right? It's a good way to kind of judge your way through the forest of information, all right? If every culture in the world said, and this was true for a while, eating tomatoes is poisonous, no one would ever eat a tomato. And in fact, for a long time we didn't eat tomatoes because people said they were poisonous because they're a member of the nightshade family, okay? Then a very famous gentleman publicly took bites out of them and didn't die, Washington Carver. He proved they were not poisonous. So, to me, when we see dowsing, and we see dowsing in many, many different cultures, that's telling me that this is something that we're doing as a human entities, okay? This is something human as opposed to something that's, Portuguese, right? This is a human element. And it keeps coming up. I don't have to ask Nathan, I can look for myself. Okay. We still have another hour?
Yep.
Good. So, now we're at our hour moment, so let's stop for a minute and see if there are any questions. I know you all got questions. You'll start right here.
I'm curious about what your thoughts are on the theory behind dowsers like Raymond, I think his name is Raymond Grace. Like the people who believe dowsing can be used to clear things like negativity, past life stuff. And
My opinion on that is what I said earlier. They're not wrong, and neither am I. In other words, there are more things under heaven and earth, Horatio. I think that what they're doing is something new. I think they've added to. Is it legitimate? Not really for me to say, because I haven't caught any of them being con men and ripping people off yet. When I do, I'll publicly stand up and say it.
Yeah.
Okay? No con man is safe from me. Okay? I'm actually pretty well hated in my community because I get in public and go, oh, so-and-so's a con. I don't care. You know, write a cease and desist letter. Let's take it to the lawyers. So I haven't seen that, but I do feel like they are doing some new thing. Except when we go back into this talking about plotting out, even where radionics comes into it, there has been a traditional belief for a long time, and you find it again, often with ley lines, dragon lines, chi lines, that there are ill lines, bad forces that can be for a number of different reasons. A bad blending of certain kinds of energy, water where water doesn't need to be, so it's too energetic of water, electrical force where the electrical force doesn't be, and this has been associated with things like cancer incidents. This is a bad house to live in. It's got the ley line comes along the side of the house like this, so everybody in the house is going to get cancer, or everybody in the house is going to have disease or stuff like that. And there have been attempts through the moving of large megalithic structures, primarily of iron composite, to redirect ley lines, to get that line to move. So maybe, therefore, on a smaller scale, what you're talking about might be possible, but I'm going to want to see some objects moved, rather than just, here's my feeling. My feeling, and I'm going to pick on your lovely gentleman here, my feeling is that by standing over this fine man and doing this, okay, I can't do shit. All right? It's like, you're cured now. You're cured because all right? Because I did what? Because I swung that around on a circle?
Yep.
Well, what happens when I go away with that?
Mm-hmm.
All right? Now, if someone were to say to me, I'm going to surround you with a bunch of incredibly powerful magnets, which is going to be really bad for your brain, bro. So just like imagine an MRI that doesn't stop.
Oh.
All right, and I'm just gonna have you be. I'm pretty sure we're gonna make some changes. I'm not sure they're appropriate changes, but we're gonna change some stuff.
He was very schizophrenic afterwards.
So I'm not sure, but I do know that in a larger sense, particularly as a guiding, like let's not live here or don't drop your well there because the water is going to be fouled, that is true. Okay? Now, that leads into a question you didn't ask, which I'm going to ask for you, because I'm just that kind of jackass. Can you move ley lines by moving large, megalithic, primarily iron ore bodies? I think this is a thought, this is an opinion, it's not a fact. I think that unfortunately you can. I think quite unfortunately you can. And I think it's been done. Often by neglect, sometimes because of important issues like where highways are going to go. And I think it has messed the hell out of the old natural system. Except I don't believe that the natural system was a natural system. I think that's a lie. I think the ley line network is man-made. I think it comes from a megalithic period, whether they knew they were doing it or not. I think they did know they were doing it. I don't think they knew they were doing it because they were the ancient order of the Most High Druids who had the information from Lemuria that had been sent in the ship with the 12, the poet, the philosopher, Hail Atlantis. Nobody thought there was going to be a Donovan moment, did you?
I did.
Way down below the ocean. Come on, some of you are old enough to know this. Where I wanna be, you and me. Okay. No, I don't think that's the reason. I think it was because they were dowsing. They did have metal technology enough to have metal iron ore dowsing. And as they were dowsing, and they would raise large megalithic iron ore bodies, they would notice the dowsing change. They were practicing, if you will, if you want to be all sciencey about it, they were practicing a very crude form of science. Okay? And so I think, my opinion, oh, by the way, my opinion is shared by almost every English ley line expert in the freaking world, so I'm in good company. But my opinion is,
And Grant Morris.
my opinion is,
That's the important part, right?
that is, because Grant would want me to say that. My opinion is that the ley line network that primarily exists in the Indo-European theater is man-made. Okay? Yes?
So does that mean if I were to say build a giant city with a whole bunch of skyscrapers that had metal frames, I would mess with the ley line?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, but then you also have to. But then you also have to consider something. I'm only going to mention lightly, and I'm not going to look at anybody in the room. Then you also have to consider the information that is understood by certain Masonic orders, and you have to understand that one of their symbols is a ball. And then you have to notice that certain cities are laid out on certain grid works, so that on certain dates, the sun only falls down Wall Street or Broadway. Okay? We all like to think that's some ancient thing that happened, right? There are some guys in white robes with sickles, and there's a big field, and there are stones. No. There are lunar solar orientations intentionally in the grid street network of Washington, D.C., New York, London. London's off the freaking chart because it's got 3 layers of those. A Roman layer, okay, and a lot of that aligns to things like the old Temple of Diana. Diana Selena, Diana of the Moon. She had a very beautiful temple right there in downtown London. It's a popular place. You still know it. It's called... Nobody knows? It's called Westminster. They built the cathedral on top of her temple. Okay? And it has a lunar solar alignment. Then you have the Celts. And they had their lunar solar alignments. So you have one of those that runs along the Thames that marks the London Stone. Now the London Stone has now been moved, but it used to be marked. Then you have a final layer of modern building, which includes Masonic alignment, which aligns certain other buildings to the two things I just mentioned, which are of an older thing as part of a heritage concept. Okay? So, am I saying there's a vast Masonic conspiracy and they actually control the chipmunks of the... No. Not the chipmunks. Not yet. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that the Masonic builders, whether they are what you conceive of as a Masonic brotherhood, or literally they're just the Masons, like the guys with trowels and bricks, put part of this into construction. And if you visit any cathedral, any church over 400 years old in Europe, you'll see it. Because they hid things. Predating images. You can go into the shop and buy beautiful green mans. Little green man statues, little green man masks, etc. There's probably one in this room someplace. Oh, there he is. And you find that in the woodwork, in the stonework of Christian Catholic cathedrals. Why? Because the Masons that were building that place weren't Catholics. They were leaving hallmarks of a previous time. And they've always done that. And by that I do not mean Masonic brotherhoods as we understand, quote, the Masons. I mean builders. Whether they were Egyptian builders, whether they were Hebraic builders, whether they were Celtic builders, people who have always been sort of, how do I want to put this, made at the point of a sword to work for other people, have put images and messages about their culture into the larger structure. Whether that's the pyramids, or whether that's Westminster Cathedral, or whatever. So, I do think that if you move these old, large, megalithic, primarily iron ore bodies, you do screw things up. All right? And as proof of that, I would offer to you evidence of Swedish car accident index along particular stretches of highway in which elf stones were moved, that later the Swedish government said, well, that's enough of that. Move the stone back and make the highway go around it. And then the accidents went away. And as I understand it, I'm no engineer, but I'm not a dummy. I'm pretty sure straight highway over straight ground should not have more accidents than highway with weird curve in it suddenly out of nowhere around giant rock. I'm pretty sure 75 miles an hour, rock, more accidents, not less. So that's part of that. Any other questions? Oh, come on. Really? I mean, I don't dance. This is it. I mean, I'm just up here. You got no questions? They got, no, we're completely satisfied with your scholarship so far, sir. Okay, great.
Actually,
Yes.
what else can you use a witness? What other things can you use a witness for? Like, could you use animal hair to find a missing animal
Yes.
on a map? Things
Yes.
like that?
Oh, excellent question. Let's talk about map dowsing. Map dowsing is terrific. Okay, I'm way too excited about this one. Okay, what is map dowsing? Thank you for asking. Now, I've already told you that we have substance dowsing and we have information dowsing. Now, under information dowsing and substance dowsing, let me give you a new two categories. Another split in a tree, as it were, no pun intended, to our Y-rod. Walking dowsing, map dowsing. Let's talk about walking dowsing again. Walking dowsing is, I'm out, I've got whatever kind of dowsing tool I'm using, and I am walking an area, okay, wherever it is, until I get my cross, which means it's underneath me, or I get my direction that I can follow, that then I can again follow until I can make a grid to figure out where it is. Why is it called walking dowsing? You're walking. Okay? I mean, I guess you could get a rascal and have rolling dowsing. Okay.
That sounds like fun.
But, you know, that's cool. But what's the opposite of that? The opposite of that is going to be map dowsing. What's map dowsing? Let's pretend for a moment that this is a map. It folds, so it's easy. Unfortunately, we know this isn't a map because I can fold it back the way it was. So it could never be a map. Because if it was a map, it would never fold back. I would take that and shove it in the closet. The minute they invented Waze for my cell phone, I took every map I owned and burnt it. You would take a map and you would lay it out. Okay? And then you would take a pendulum. Now, that pendulum, let me show you. This pendulum, that's a very poor pendulum to use for map dowsing. Why?
Not very pointy.
It's no point. It's too rounded, too soft at the end. All right? Very bad pendulum for map dowsing. These are both pretty good. This one's even better because it comes to a very fine point. All right? Why do we need a very fine point? Well, on the bottom of your map, you'll notice there's a little bar that says x equals x. If you were using a one-to-one map, that would be called walking dowsing. You would literally just walk. So because of that, you need to be able to get as fine an area on a map as possible to differentiate between 42nd Street and 41st Street, except because on a map, they're that close together, right? If I use this, it's just going to be Omaha. Omaha. All right? And what you do is, you could, using a witness, like a bullet pendulum, a hollow chambered pendulum, could place something in it. Or you could tell the pendulum what you're looking for. Then you hold the pendulum over the map. There are several different ways to do this. Let me give you the most basic. The most basic is you hold it over and you follow its movement. So if it starts moving, okay, now it's slowly moving this way. I'm going to move that way with it, unless it gives me a counterproductive reading, like it starts moving a different way. I'm going to follow it. When it gets where it wants to, it's going to start circling it. Okay? And then I can get closer and closer, and the circle should get a little tighter. Okay? And I can say it's in this area of the map. That's one method. Another method is to begin and go through the cardinal positions. All right? I'm going to take a north reading. I'm going to take a... So in other words, it's our yes-no again. Remember our yes-no? Is it in the north quadrant of this map? And it goes, yes. Okay. Now, to find out if I have an asshole pendulum, I'm going to come over here and go, is it in the west quadrant? And it goes, yes. Okay, that could still make sense. It could be northwest. Is it in the eastern quadrant of my... No. Okay, good. You're not a jerk. Is it in the southern? No. Okay, so now I'm going to come over to the northwest, and I'm just going to keep narrowing down by yes-nos. Okay? Yes, no, maybes. But you go through the entire quadrants of the map. You could also do that in a more informational-based way if you knew the limitations of the search. I know that Mr. Fluffkins, being one of those little midget cats, what are the little stumpy-legged cats? You know what I'm talking about? Anybody? Come on, they're on the internet all the time. They're these cross-mixed cats that are like, they have these real short legs.
Teacup?
Huh?
The teacup?
They're not a teacup. No,
No,
they're
they're
as
just
long
like
as like a
miniature-
regular cat, but they're
Just
like this
miniature
tall.
cat.
I hate
Okay, well, but the point is that Mr. Muffkins, who's one of those, doesn't have enough reach to have gotten out of my neighborhood, okay, in the last 4 minutes. So I don't have to search the whole map, because I know he's not hitchhiking. So I can just use my area. In other words, because I have prior information. All right, I have prior information. Now, sometimes you get a surprise. And sometimes it's a nasty surprise. Sometimes if you're doing a map dowsing for a lost child, and you know that child can only have gone X amount of time in X amount of distance, so you're working here, and all of a sudden your pendulum starts doing this.
Yep.
Like, go over here, and you're like, oh crap, somebody's got it. Somebody got him in a car. Now we're trying to follow the car. All right, it's kind of disheartening. All right. Those who are going to do map dowsing and anybody who's going to do area dowsing with a pendulum, anybody who's going to do map dowsing for people or animals, This is unpleasant. Please bear with me. You're going to need to train your pendulum to have a fourth new reading. Yes, no, maybe, dead. Okay? Because, unfortunately, we live in a pretty mean old world, and it always has been, ain't getting no better. And sometimes if you're looking for somebody on a map, they're not moving because they're never going to move again. And you don't want to be map dowsing and go, oh, they're over here, and then hop in your car and drive over there, and yeah, there they are. Okay? You can combine map and field dowsing, or walking dowsing. So let's say I want to know where somebody is. I get a reading, and I've narrowed it down. Then you can get a bigger map, right? You can change scale, get a bigger map. Read out, narrow it down, print off a goddamn thing from Google Maps or something. Get a really big map, just a few streets. Do it, really narrow it down, and then you can go out to that area and walk dows. Okay? That's particularly good if you're looking for objects. Inevitably, in a class like this, even in a shop like this, somebody said, or things. But do you believe in it, Professor Porterfield? You can ask my wife how I have found both my wedding ring and my phone when I just had misplaced them in our house. No, it's a hysterical image, so please consider my ass in my house going, where the fuck is my phone? Oh, son of a bitch. Good work. All right. So if you want to know if I believe in it, yeah, duh, I've looked for my own shit in my own house.
But it's very difficult to douse for your lost L-rods.
Yes, I have actually lost my L-rods and couldn't find them because I couldn't douse for them. All right, let's see, where are we at, just so we know. Okay, now we have a moment. Again, any other questions? Anyway, yes.
I don't know if it's a question so much as can you talk about, because you can go walk dows with the plumb bob, but you haven't mentioned how do I triangulate that?
Okay.
And I'm assuming you could map dows the same way with the pendulum rather than having to go along the grid, maybe?
Let me show you this. So I consider this plumb bob, we have a camera here tonight, and so they're filming from a certain area. I feel that this is not enough lead. Not for me, okay? I like to have a lot more lead than this because when I'm area dowsing with a plumb bob, I'm not doing this, okay? I'm not doing this at all, okay? What I'm doing is this because I want a more accurate reading up front and I want to manipulate it less. And see if it's just around one finger, I can't make that do, I guess hold on. Okay, there. Oh, nobody noticed. Right? But when you're holding it like this, you can make that do anything. I can make this write my name. Okay? But this, you have less control over it, and therefore you get more of a natural reading. The old style for this is, you're it. Remember when things like this had a wooden spindle you wrapped the cord around? Okay. What you would do is you would balance that wooden spindle on your hand. So you really couldn't influence it because you weren't touching the rope at all. You weren't touching the cord at all. So that's how I prefer to do that. And when I'm field walking, I want to be able to see it very accurately. And when I'm holding it down like this, it's right here. I can't always see subtler movements. So, because sometimes this all looks like this is going to be way radical. Okay, it looks like the plumb bobs are always going to be like. Arr! Remember that time we had a class and I was doing that, and plumb bob came off and hit him, and that's not always the way the bob's going to act. The motion's often going to be very subtle. Sometimes that motion also is going to be a little confusing because sometimes it's going to do that motion. Sometimes it's going to spin. And that's when you know you're right above something. because there's no way for it to spin, right? We can make an argument that if I was, like, ladies and gentlemen, the amazing Randy, what a jackass. We can make the argument that, I could make this do what I want. I can't make it spin. The cord's not wound. So when you see it spin on its own, you're normally right above something. And that's the only way it can tell you. You can't do this or this, because then that would be leading you a little bit in a direction. It's going, it's below you, boss, it's below you. So when we're walk dowsing and we get a alternate reading, this would be great. It's below me. But let's say it starts doing this. Okay, great. That means it's on a line somewhere. So now I have to take another reading. I have to find a way to know, is it at this end or is it at this end? So I'm going to intentionally move myself, let's say where you are, okay, to see if it's then going to go like that, back and forth. Because if it does, then I know that those lines intersect somewhere, right? So it must be at this end. If it moves that way, then I know those two lines must intersect over here, so this movement means go that way. So again, this is like plotting, okay? This is literally like surveying. You have to find where the lines intersect. Did that make any sense? Not at all. No. All right, let me try and demonstrate. Here is a field. This charming circle is myself. I have a plumb bob. I'm looking for, a long time ago we had a sewage line that ran from a septic tank. The house is no longer there. We're not sure where the line, or where the sep line or the septic tank is. And I'm trying to find that. I asked the pendulum. The pendulum makes a movement like this. Back and forth on that line. Now, that doesn't help me, because that means it can be anywhere on either end of that line. So how do I find it? I'll then move over here. This is me again, happy circle, man, and take another reading. If the reading I get moves like that, then I know it must be on this end of the line. If the reading I get, I'll move up here. If the reading I get here instead goes like that, I know it must be on this end of the line.
It's like triangulating.
It's triangulation. And I keep triangulating until I find the exact place. Then you get the fun of getting a shovel and digging down and going, septic tank. Okay. Oh, and by the way, dowsing for septic tanks is something that totally happens a lot. Okay. Because somehow people lose their septic tank. Okay, the truth of the matter is they don't lose their septic tank. They die, somebody sells the house, and the new people don't know where it is. So they hire a dowser. So that would answer that question. Any other questions? Okay. Moving on. How can I learn about dowsing? Excellent, thank you. There are a number of excellent books about dowsing. This is one of the best. It's called The Divining Hand. It's by Christopher Bird. It's from Whitford Press. As you can see, it is no slim tome. Not only is it a damn thick book, it's a very big book. And it has lots of, you can see how far back dowsing goes. Here are people with tri-corner hats. Okay. Here are people using different kinds of bent rods, doodle bugs. Here's a fascinating one. I want to show you this picture. I don't know if you can see this very well because it's black and white. This is a traditional Y rod, okay, that the guy's holding in front of him. He's in the passenger seat of a car, and somebody else is driving the car until they get a reading. They're covering a big area, but he's dowsing inside the car. He's waiting for the car to move past intersect over or be above what he's searching for, and then his little bobber will go down and he'll go, stop! And I guess his friend will just slam the brake. And then they'll move maybe out of the car, take another reading. Okay, so even like that, you could even dowse while traveling around in the car. This is just an excellent book. Let me show you this, because a lot of people ask about this. They say, okay, it's cool. And I saw you do the trick with where's your wife? But come on, pal. You're using your phone. Come on, buddy. You expect me to believe that a piece of metal on a piece of wood can find stuff? Nobody accepts that. That's childish. That's unscientific. Here are Marines being taught how to dowse for mines at Quantico by the United States military. Okay? These are Marines. Anybody in this room ever met a Marine? They're very serious people. Okay? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like loosey-goosey, airy-fairy, like, you know, I'm really in touch with my feelings and colors because all of my chakras right now. Hoorah! No. Never hear that sentence. These are solid guys who believe in, you know, ammunition. Okay? And peace through superior firepower. You know, shit like that. And they're being taught. These are not two traditional dowsers like they joined the Marines and Granddad taught them to dowse. And so the Marines said, hell, what the hell? Go ahead, give it a try there. Okay? No, Gunny is teaching them how to dowse. And he's not teaching them how to dowse for something that it doesn't matter if we miss. He's teaching them how to dowse for mines. Freaking mines. Okay? Listen, I'm a professional dowser. I've been a dowser for almost 25 years. If someone hired me and said, hey, Professor Porterfield, come out to my house and we need to know where there's water, and my ass is out there searching around for water, you know what never happens? I never explode. I never blow up real good. Okay? It's never happened. It's never going to happen. Okay? How serious is the traditional, real life, solid art of dowsing? United States Marine Corps members are taught how to dowse for landmines. There's no more serious. I mean, I guess NSA agents are taught how to dowse for hidden nuclear weapons. Okay, fair enough. There is one level up. But I'm not sure that's true. But this one's true. There are the pictures right there. All right? Excellent book. Look for it. Now, unfortunately, there is no copy of The Divining Hand out here. So you'll have to send off for it. It's a pretty expensive book because, as you can see, it's not a little book and it's not exactly light. But if you would like to know more about dowsing, what about Dowsing for Beginners? This is a very good book, okay, by Richard Webster, who has a respectable reputation. He's from New Zealand. And this book is available next door, and it covers most of the basics, a lot more than you're going to get out of just this class, because I'm only talking for 2 hours. As an example, it shows you the positions of holding the Y rod so you know when it dips. One of the things that I have not talked about tonight is bobbers, because I don't have one, because I don't like them. So really, nobody pays for that except you all. A bobber is something like this. You use one bobber instead of 2. Except here the metal will make a series of, almost like a spring, like that. And then the end will come up, and there'll be a little tiny weight on the end of it. And so it naturally will want to bob, right? Kind of like fishing. And what you do is you walk with it, but you keep it very steady, because you're not trying to get this motion with it, so it doesn't have this kind of handle. It has a solid handle. And what you're waiting to see is you're waiting to see the bobber go bob. Again, very hard to manipulate, right? You can't, how the hell are they going to do that? I mean, I guess they could start building something up in their wrist, but no, primarily that weight's just going to go bob. So that's kind of where a Y rod meets an L rod, all right? You can also make a lot of this stuff. So this is a very nice book. Here we see an example of a gentleman doing map dowsing. He's got his pendulum, he's got his pen, he's got his map. I'm surprised he doesn't have a ruler, because you can dowels out like I told you do by coordinates. You can do that with a ruler. Sump, check next quadrant. Sump. So this is a nice book. They have it next door. This is The Great Pendulum book. Petra Sonnenberg. It's an okay book. I recommend it. But really, I just love this book. This is Practical Pendulum book, the Practical Pendulum book. And the reason I like this is because on the cover, they have a piece of, and see, look, they're all in here. These are pendulum charts. All right, what's a pendulum chart? Pendulum chart is some people don't want to do it the way I said and do a bunch of yes, no, 20. They don't want to play 20 questions with pendulum. All right, and that's what it is. Is it bigger than a bread box? Yes. Is it smaller than the Empire State Building? No. What? Okay. They don't want to do that. So what they have are charts, and that are reduplicated in this book. So here's, wow, this is a really rarefied one. This is chart number 24. Herbs for sleepiness, which works best for me? And we have mint, passion flower, chamomile, sage, hops, cowslip, lettuce, mullein, skullcap. Yeah, I bet that'll all work for you. On the chart. All right? And so what you're doing is you're looking at where the pendulum goes on the chart. It's going to direct you to it. It's one of the reasons I find this book delightful. This is a very old way of using a pendulum, and you don't see a lot of these charts anymore. They used to sell them not as a book, but just, they'd be like a package, and you just get them. Now, here are some round ones. So you also have, here's a place to put. Is this a good partner, or is this a good friend, or is this a good companion? They have a place to put 2 photos. All right. You will also see charts like that are full circles. All right. And you will even see charts that, now everybody stay calm. Everybody take a breath with me. There are some charts that look something like Ouija boards. Stay calm. I know all you people in the late 20th, early 21st century are. You've seen the movie with the girl who has the sleepover and they do the thing where they have the cookies, and then later in the movie she's like, okay. Now you're scared to death of the damn things. They're from Parker Brothers, people. They make Monopoly. You ever see anybody in a movie getting possessed by a Monopoly board? Oh, I think I'm going to charge you a lot of extra money. That never happens. You don't see people throwing away Worry or Trouble or Candyland. How often have you met some mom who says,
We don't let Candyland in this household. It's of the devil.
never?
Westboro Baptist.
Okay, they don't count. I'm talking about human beings.
Monopoly.
What?
I said my parents would always fight anytime they played Monopoly. I was figuring it was an evil game.
The point is, a Ouija board has a bunch of bull reputation, and there's nothing to be scared about it. But the pendulum boards don't look like a Ouija board because you couldn't take a reading on a Ouija board because it's a semicircle of letters with another semicircle of letters with another. So how would you know if it was the R or the, well, C-N-Q? I have no idea. So what they are is they're circles of letters. A, B, C, D, E, all the way around. So you can get a reading, okay, starting from center, okay, and then move to do it. They look very different. You can make them out of paper, and traditionally they were made out of paper, okay. Never caught on with Parker Brothers because kids are not going to play with a pendulum, okay. I have 2 grown sons. They're both grown men now who have wives and families and shit. And I have 2 small 6-year-old grandsons and a little tiny baby grandson. And I watch my 6-year-old grandsons constantly, and I know exactly what a kid will do with this. Which will immediately be followed by, shh, don't tell mom, no, you're okay, I'm sorry, don't tell anybody. Okay. Didn't catch on with Parker Brothers. All right, but the point is that there are excellent books like this. They sell this one next door. And it has all of these. And the reason a book like this is kind of good is because it's kind of a different way of thinking. And if you look at a book like this once, you'll be able to make dozens of these for your own needs. And in fact, in the front of the book, they talk about that. And they even give you some blank ones to use and tell you that. And they also show you a variety of notations of different pendulum movements and what they mean, and how you can read them, and show you various kinds of movements of the pendulum, various types of movements. Excellent book. Again, I'm going to come back to where I started and suggest to you that if you're very interested in dowsing, go to www.dowsers.org. Okay? They're a great organization. And you can get pretty much anything you'd ever want about dowsing, all the way up to radionics materials from them. Books, seminars, DVDs, cassette tapes, because they've totally come into the future with us. VCR and Betamax tapes.
Are you serious?
Yes,
Like an
I'm
8-track?
serious. Did I tell you that dowsers like to pick up technology? They don't like to put it back down. It worked once, it's going to keep working. But they're a very nice organization, and I highly recommend them. A lot of them are wonderful people, and they have a nice fraternal kind of feeling amongst them. And I will, actually I'm going to put these here so that after the class, if you want to come up, you can look at that. And if only 3 of you need them, you can take them. Let me show you a paper. Here's what we're talking about. Here's the alphabet. We still have a no, yes, but notice that they're crossed. We have numbers. This also talks about this. So this is called an alphabetic pendulum board. There's a 4-way pendulum pattern, an 8-way pendulum pattern. Yes, no, maybe, okay, don't know. Some of you at this point may have discovered or remembered that there is a further form of information dowsing. You may be reminded there's a form of information dowsing in which a floating bob, often like a fishing bob, is placed into water and allowed to move with the motion of the water that's created by your hands, or even a vigorous shaking, so that it shows various answers. Most of you will know this from its popular Parker Brothers form, the Magic 8 Ball. All right? Whereas that's a child's toy, it's a child's toy developed off of an older way of doing things. All right? So, again, it's kind of fun, right? But it's still the same thing. You may have noticed it just now when I said that. Yes, no, I don't know. You may have thought to yourself, ask again later. All right? Same thing. All right? This is also a form of, but that's a liquid-based pendulum. There are some fire-based pendulums. That is true. They're mostly about watching the direction smoke moves from a candle. They're very difficult to do. All right? I mean, they're super difficult to do. And it's one of the reasons that you don't hear anybody talk about it, because they're so difficult to do that nobody does it anymore. All right? Because in here, I would have to make very careful that nothing was on. Blow out a candle. First of all, that candle has to have certain wax content or it won't smoke. Not easy to find a smoking candle. Oh, by the way, tomorrow we'll be talking about candles. Not easy to find a smoking candle anymore because we make good candles. All right? Tallow candle, that'll smoke like that. All right? Can't get it to stop smoking. All right? So, again, following the smoke of a candle kind of went out of fashion. All right? That's just true of anything in history. The easy stuff survives. The stuff that technology can address survives. All right. Any questions? Yes.
So let's say.
They're going to think you're a plant.
Yes.
See, she already thought.
Somebody else has questions. You can go first.
No, go ahead.
So let's say I'm going to be. I've never sat through this class before, by the way. Let's say I'm going to be information dowsing in a kind of divinatory way for, like, I'm gonna be asking questions all over the place, not just about you or me or whatever, and so I don't want to put a personal concern in it.
Mhm.
What kind of witness would you suggest putting into the hollow space?
Let's say you had a pendulum that you're going to be doing that for a dedicated purpose. You're not just doing it this once. You're always going to do that.
Yeah.
This is going to be an informational pendulum that I'm going to be using for information dowsing and primarily divination. You would place into the hollow materials that aid in divination. You could add a little camphor. You could add a little bit of bay leaf. Any of those things that aid in psychicism, divinatory reading. Let's say you know somebody who makes a good soap for divinate. Well, what's in it? Right? Oh, rue, what about? Well, you could add all that. I'm not telling you to add the soap. I'm saying the same sort of herbal components. All right. I make one that I add a black cat bone to because I want to see unseen things. All right. So I add a little shard of the black cat bone. And then basically what you're doing is you're saying you're dedicated to divining. You're going to find information that is unknown, that is hidden, that is secret, that is unseen, etc. That's your only job. All right. And then you're not going to be able to use it to go, where are my keys? Okay. Because that's not that kind of question. All right. You're going to be able to do readings with it and readings alone. Anyone else? Come on. You know you have questions. Here, I'll make it easy.
It doesn't have to be about dowsing.
Yes, this is my real hair.
So when you're using a jack ball,
Yes.
what primarily do you use that jack ball for?
I primarily use this jack ball to protect me and to keep other people from meddling with me. It just so happens it also serves as a nice pendulum for me to divine with. But me, I'm using a jack ball to get people to leave me alone, to get other people, whatever, completely different class. And again, because it's dedicated solely to me. Okay. Did I mention that a jack ball is soaked in the person who's going to use its urine?
No.
No? Well, it is.
Yeah, I was curious because I had never thought of it as a pendulum, so I was curious.
Oh yeah. Oh no, because people ask questions of Jack. They ask the Jack question.
That's true.
Right.
That's true.
And that's how they're getting those answers.
Which is why you get the old saying of you don't know jack.
You don't know Jack. That's right. Now, that also leads into another form of, it's not really a pendulum, but it kind of is because it's about a movement within a area. And you see it in, you see it in Hoodoo and Conjure, and it's almost completely dead at this point in time. And I feel bad about that. And that is the use of a bottle about this size. It's normally a bottle with a stopper with a fairly wide opening into which is introduced, do you know what a stick bug is? Okay, a stick bug looks like a stick. See how simple that was? It has a long, thin body, and it has long, thin legs that either, it almost looks like a hobby horse, and it has a little head that comes up. And basically, a stick bug is put into the bottle, and questions are asked, and the way the bug moves determines the answers. And people would keep these, feed this bug, keep it for years alive, because it would answer questions for them. That's a little different, but it's somewhat similar only in so much as, again, we're determining answers by movement. All right? If it moves this way, that's a yes. If it moves that way, it's a no. So that has a similarity to this. It is my hope that you will take a little time and experiment with one form of dowsing or another. That's a lie. It is my hope that you will experiment with one form of dowsing and then experiment with other forms of dowsing because they're all really cool and fun. And if you end up starting with a pendulum, which a lot of people do nowadays, you might find that you end up really enjoy using some L rods. Okay? Or that if you start with L rods, you might find that using a pendulum and keeping a pendulum in your pocket is really convenient for you. And you don't have to suddenly whip out 2 metal rods in front of Orange Julius in the mall to go, I told you I know where we park. But I hope that you will look more at dowsing. Within the structure of this class, there was so much that I could not cover. I could not bring up the Spanish needles, which is an almost extinct form of dowsing, done with 4 small metal rods, not much bigger than this closed, with little hooks on the end, which takes 2 dowsers. Each person has 2 of those rods. They hook those 2 rods together, and then through following the subtle movements of them, they move together. It takes 2 people. You must do it in concert. And again, that's a kind of a double-blind method. You can't say, because you're not supposed to use 2 people that know each other. So there can be no collusion. All right? It was almost lost. There was a very famous professor, he's discussed in this book, and he was a professor of folklore, and he was discussing this in a seminar in the 1970s on the East Coast, and he talked about the Spanish needles. They're called Spanish needles. And he said, no one does this anymore, it's dead art. And a young Latina lady in the audience said, and he said, yes, and she said, my grandmother does that. My grandmother has those. And he cornered her after class and said, where is your grandmother? And literally made her go get her grandmother, had her bring her grandmother back to the university. They took pictures of the 2 of them doing it together. He took measurements. He wrote an entire ethnography on all her memories about how she came to the Spanish needles, etc. And that was one of the reasons it survived. Because then she took such pride in the fact that her grandmother had done it, that she wanted to learn it, and she taught it to her daughter, and then it spread. And so now people use the Spanish needles again. Primarily, you only find them used in Mexico, Arizona, New Mexico, some in Nevada. What's interesting is that there is a plant that in English is called Spanish needles. And that plant has an end to it. It is a straight piece of stalk, and then it has a little hook at the end. It looks something like the metal ones. And it is my belief that the plant was originally harvested and used. Like you would just, like the Y rod, you wouldn't have them cast in metal. You'd just go out to the Spanish needle plant, snap them off, snap 4 off, and you and your friend would do whatever. So, again, there wasn't enough time to talk about all that. There's not enough time to talk about what's called a bent Y, which is a piece of tubing or metal that literally goes like that, and you hold it like this, and how it operates. But you have pressure control. You ask questions. When you move your hands together, the loop becomes bigger. You move your hands apart, the loop becomes smaller. And you use that to help focus as you find. So in other words, you're walking along, it dips. And then to get a more accurate reading, you're doing this or doing that, to have a broader area for the loop to run. The reason I couldn't go into all that,
Now wait a minute, didn't you actually go into?
shut up. The reason I couldn't go more into all that is because the subject is vast. All right? Dowsing as a recorded history. We have it written down. We have drawings, and then etchings, and then lithograph, and then photographs. Is at least 550 to 575 years old as a recorded. It is far older than that. We have other evidence of it older than that. But as a thing that we've been talking about and writing down in books and discussing, it's almost 600 years old. So I had 2 hours. I hope that you will look at some of the books. They are available next door. They do have extending dowsing pins like this. They do have L rods like this. If you would like a really good pendulum, you can get pendulums like this. And I will tell you the secret, the ancient mystic secret of getting a pendulum like this. You're going to go down to Lowe's and go into the construction department where they've got the T-squares and the rulers and look for Empire. They make these, Empire Built on Trust, limited 1-year warranty. I don't know why I've got them. That's a 1-year warranty. Boom, you can get one like this. If you want one like this that has spiritual materials in it, herbs, etc., you contact me, I'll build you one and sell it to you. So, any last questions? Yes.
I'm just curious. So for pendulums and whatnot, do you have to clean them, cleanse them? How do they pick up energy?
So some people say yes, some people say no. Let me give you a couple of rules on that. Rule 1, if nobody else is handling it, your instance of cleansing is going to go down. Now, you know what I'm saying? I mean, let me put it this way. So I always carry a handkerchief because that's just how I was raised. All right? And I know if that needs to be laundered or not. All right? The more I lend it out, it's getting laundered. All right? Because you could say, oh, I didn't use it. No, I just touched it. No, buddy. I'm washing it. All right? So in other words, if you have a pendulum, and particularly like something like this beautiful amethyst pendulum, right? And people are like, oh, I love that. Oh, I get such positive vibes. Thank you for letting me see that. Yeah, you should probably like cleanse that when you like immediately, if not sooner. All right. Now from there, we can follow the line of the idea of contagion. If you have a nice little pendulum like this and you're asking questions, and your questions are things like, am I going to get that raise? Is Scooters open right now? Can't remember the time. Okay? Or whatever. See, I adopted to your Nebraskan place. Silly. Or whatever, then probably not, right? It's not going to be that much. If on the other hand, you're like, does my great-grandpa, who was the drunkard who beat my great-grandma's wife and died cursing God, have anything to tell me? And you get some answers. You might want to cleanse that afterwards, because I don't even know why you're asking questions, bro. But that's up to you. That's a family thing. I'm not going to get involved. But you might want to cleanse it. That does quickly bring up one last thing that I want to say, and I wanted to save it for last, and here's why. The reason I wanted to save it for last is because I've taught a lot of classes in America, in a lot of places, and I know human beings, and I know when I say this, there's going to be a certain percentage of the room who's going to run out the door to do this immediately, and I'm just going to go, oh, son of a... Dowsing is used in ghost hunting. Oh, God, here we go.
I was going to ask that.
And, see, I anticipate.
Yeah.
Dowsing is used in ghost hunting, and it's become quite fashionable. Which tells you right there you should avoid it. And people will ask questions about where is the spirit in the room. Did you notice that my thumbs are on that? Because I don't want that answer right now. Okay?
Where's the spirit in the room? Where's the ghost? Where did the person die? Da, 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 da.
If you're doing that, you should be cleansing the hell out of that stuff. All right? Because you're taking that into that environment. Let me now, as a matter of closing, if there are no further questions, I will
Just one.
Go ahead.
So along that same line, now, of course, we do graveyard work, those of us who do conjure. I have been known to use a pendulum whenever I have went to a grave and asked permission.
Of course. It's an excellent way. Excellent. You're giving the spirit something to actually touch and do. First of all, thank you for coming to my class. Second, I would like to end with the thing that I encourage you not to do. This is the don't do. If you are doing pendulum work, if you are doing L-rod work, if you are doing any work, particularly you are in an older dwelling place, an older building. We have older towns. Omaha is quite old, etc. Please do yourself a favor and never ask the following question. Where's the body? Just avoid the trouble of it, because you'll get an answer a lot of the time. And then you won't want to live in your house anymore. Then you'll be on the phone with me blaming me, and I'll be like, oh no, there's a liability clause, man. When you bought a ticket, it said that,
Yeah.
Thank you for coming to my class. I have been Professor Charles Porterfield. tomorrow with the Enduring Flame. Everything you ever wanted to know about candle magic, but apparently we're afraid to ask.